Welcome back to yet another episode of the Hardcore Casual with your boy, Bass the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, any form and factor in between. I appreciate it all. Numbers, they are rising, still not as quickly as I might like, so if we can get those numbers up, I greatly appreciate it. But more than anything else, I'm just here to talk right about now. Few things I've seen over the last couple of days, few things I've still got to address from last week. So without further ado, let's get into it. So Alexander Usyk recently came out and said that he's considering moving back down to cruiserweight, especially if the Tyson Fury fight doesn't happen at the start of next year. He said that it takes a toll on him to constantly have to eat the amount of food he needs to eat to maintain a heavyweight physique. The training is a lot harder, having to train as a heavyweight to be stronger and fitter and do more. He said fighting the big guys isn't a problem, it's just literally the diet and the food and the preparation. Like, you know, he's getting older, it takes a lot more of a toll on him. I can understand that, because let's be real, let's look at David Haye for instance. All the training that he had to do to get his body up to that heavyweight sort of level, you know, 15 stone 5, 15 stone 10 and above, and every minute body's breaking down, this muscle's tearing, that muscle's tearing, because naturally you're just packing a whole lot of muscle onto a frame that is not supposed to be that heavy. You know, as bigger guys as they are, 6'3", whatnot, their natural bodies probably cap out around 195 to maybe 205 pounds, 210 to, you know, to be sort of absolute, and that's a natural frame, so that's without packing on muscle and whatnot. So remember, his first fight in the heavyweight division, I think he came in against, what was it, Chaz Witherspoon at, I think it was 211 pounds, 213, and that would have been with some training, some food or whatnot, so I can assume that he probably is in and around at his best weight, probably, I'd say about 200, 2 to 205. I mean, that's kind of where I sit around, and I'm not even their size in terms of height and whatnot, and it does take quite a bit for me to get above that, although it takes a lot of effort for me to get below it as well, but that's a whole different story. But yeah, he said, look, Arsene Gulamarian's there, Lungu Makabu, Lawrence Okoli, and Jaya Pataya. I mean, you know what? If the Tyson Fury fight doesn't happen, I wouldn't blame him. I mean, why do you need to be in there with guys that are constantly 6'6", 6'7", 225, 230, 240, 250, 260, 270 in the cases of Joe Joyce and Tyson Fury. Like, obviously Tyson is the big prize, so that makes total sense at this point in time. But when it comes to the other guys, it's not saying that he can't beat them. Like you said, fighting with them isn't the problem, but having to maintain the body to be up there, and I guess maybe to worry, you know, not have to be pushed around the ring or have enough energy that you can push back when you're getting caught in clinches or whatnot. Yeah, might take a toll. Now, that being said, he's an older guy now, so he said himself he's got 3 fights left. Now, he said it's Tyson Fury for undisputed, then it's Canelo in a freak show just for the money, and then a homecoming fight to the Ukraine, and he's done. Maybe going down in weight might stretch that career out a little bit more, who knows. So with that being said, I mean, I don't hate the idea. Like I said, I just feel that being 35, coming up to 36 in January, it's a bit of a stretch. So I'll just say, like, be careful in it. But if that's what you want to do, as far as I'm concerned, like, you've earned that right. You're not a career heavyweight, you've been a career cruiserweight, and he's pretty much done everything there is to do. And if he does manage to get that undisputed, quite frankly, I'd say retire then and there. But if he wants to go back down and clean up the cruiserweight division again, there's not one person that can say something. Even if he does it now, there's not one person that can say something. Oh, he didn't fight Joe Joyce, he didn't fight Daniel Dubois, he didn't fight Hergo. Yeah, well, he's a lot smaller than those guys naturally. He didn't have to. He went in there, beat the man who had the belts, and now sailed off into the sunset. I ain't got a problem with it, quite frankly. But yeah, whatever he chooses to do on this one, apart from obviously duck undisputed, I'll support any other decision man makes right about now. Speaking of Alexander Usyk, I'm gonna keep it there real quick, as I have not watched any Tyson Fury interviews over the last couple weeks, to be honest. I'd have no time for Tyson. People know my aversion to listening to him at this point. But I have seen some clips and some snippets of him basically suggesting that Alexander Usyk is on the PEDs. Now, some people will say everyone at the elite level is on PEDs, 80%, 90%, whatever. But he put it in an interview, I think it was with Radio Raheem, where he basically said that, you know, Usyk didn't want to fight him in December because he wanted to go away and eat his special food and turn himself back into a big strong boy, or words to those effects. Now, that might be true. I'm not going to actually say that there's no case that is not happened in some way, shape or form, especially over the last couple of years with the injuries and whatnot. Maybe you need a little extra help to recover and, you know, to you know, grow those muscles back out again. But for the person that has never failed a VADA test, never failed a UCAD test, never failed a amateur doping test, has never been found with anything in their system thus far, the person that has failed a test for nandrolone, has failed a cocaine test, has openly stated that they drink and do cocaine when they was out of the ring, and by all intents and purposes looked like they was coked out of their head at the Joe Joyce and Joseph Parker fight. That coming from you is very, very rich. Unless your whole point is to say, well, I know a drug cheat when I see one because I am one. If that's the angle, then okay. Sometimes there's credence in that. Some people are like, I know exactly who you are because I'm that guy as well, or I've been that guy. I can see the signs. Maybe that's the angle coming from, but it's just weird that this person, you get Joshua, pumped up bodybuilder, has insinuated numerous times that Joshua's on stuff, insinuated that Usyk's on stuff, but yet you actually were on stuff. Very similar to Jarrell Miller, talking about AJ with TUEs and whatnot, but then he tests positive for damn near everything behind the counter and everything on the black market all at once, and then came back and did it again. Like, so yeah, it's one of them ones where you kind of just have to laugh, innit? I guess you could almost throw it back to the Conor Benn thing with, you know, Jarrell Miller. Oh, well, the biggest payday in the world, and you go and do that, blah, blah, blah. And then here we got history repeating itself, allegedly. It's one of them things where, like, sometimes it's better just to not have an opinion. I feel like literally sometimes, if you don't say shit, like, nothing can come back against you. Or if you're gonna say shit, just don't say shit on camera. Be bland. Be Joe Joyce. Because Joe Joyce, I don't think ever has a situation where he's gonna say something that comes back to haunt him. Because you can see every time he wants to say something, his brain starts going into overload. Like, should I say this? Should I not? Is this the right moment? And then ultimately he fumbles his words, he laughs it off, and then he moves on to the next topic. That might just be the way to be from now on, because the amount of contradictions that get put out in the public, like, it's crazy. I would have spoke about Eddie, but you know what? That's a whole nother thing for a whole nother. That might be in the next piece. I don't know yet. But yeah, just with regards to this, like, Tyson Fury, I'm done talking about it. Like, you guys already know what I'm going to say. You can leave your comments down below. I know exactly who's going to comment on this and what they're going to say. But yeah, for me, not worth talking about anymore. Actually, no, that's a lie. Because we got to talk about the fact that the Derek Chisora Trilogy fight with Tyson Fury has gone into advanced negotiations and is likely to be taking place on the 3rd of December. Frank Warren did an interview basically stating that. In the interview, Umar said, well, why is this a fight for Tyson? And ultimately Frank couldn't find the words to justify why Chisora is a worthy candidate. The most he was able to say, he's number 9 on BoxRec. Well, we all know that BoxRec has been busted since 2018. And BoxRec does a point system based on the algorithm of wins and losses, but also the amount of bouts that you have. So Derek Chisora being number 9 on BoxRec is not really that high of an achievement when he's had over 45 fights. it makes sense that he would be, because even in the losses, you still will get some points if you have a high enough opponent that you lose to. And he's got loads of losses to former world champions or current reigning world champions at the time when he lost to them. So, I mean, that's not any great shakes. Currently, he's number 13 in the WBC, and he's not ranked in any other sanctioning body at present. WBA, IBF, WBO, he's not in any of those, but he's conveniently number 13 in the WBC rankings. You could say he's 9 on BoxRec, but ultimately 9 on BoxRec with 12 losses that you're going to try and sell, but you're not putting it on, you're not putting it at Principality, because you said, quite frankly, oh, we'll have a press conference and we'll announce where it's going to be. So basically, you know, it's not going to fill a stadium. That's basically what you're admitting, that this quote unquote trilogy fight can't fill a stadium because Tyson by himself isn't a draw enough to fill that stadium. And the Chisora people has already seen it twice. They know how it's going to go. That's not going to fill a stadium. So that's probably going to end up at the, maybe like a MEN Arena, Manchester, maybe like a homecoming for Tyson, something like that. It would make sense to put it up there if it's available. Or in the MEN, sorry, the AO. I know they call it the AO now. I was there a couple of weeks back. But yeah, I mean, look, you can get about 21,000 in there. So good. That's a good number. It will definitely do numbers in there. Someone will watch it. Pay-per-view, I know I won't be there. I'm not going to go to the fight. I ain't going to order that pay-per-view. I've seen it twice. Derek, as much as I like Derek and I like that he tries, he is not going to do anything different in this fight than he did in the other two, apart from he might try and throw a couple more hands in the first round. His punch resistance is all but gone at this point. He already said he hasn't got much left in the tank. He probably needs to be fighting the level below this. The Pulev fight was a good fight. The Parker fights were still fun fights, even though he was clearly, you know, getting damaged. That's where he kind of needs to be. So this isn't the route, quite frankly. So yeah, Frank said some other decent things in that interview, to be honest, but I'm not going to address those here. I might address them in another thing. But I have a very much an agreeable hate relationship with Frank. Sometimes he will say some absolute nonsense, but then other times he'll make some sense, even though sometimes that sense is contradictory, as you will hear with things like the UCAD testing and whatnot. However, he did talk about some stuff with the commission that I did totally agree with. So yeah, I might talk about that later on. But for now, yeah, it looks like that trilogy is happening. Which, to be fair, let's be honest, Tyson Fury told us about this trilogy, 2 years ago? And I always said, don't be surprised if Tyson Fury is fighting Dillian Whyte and then fighting Chisora. Like, that was one of the few things I actually believed him on, and lo and behold, it's come to pass. Maybe the Manuel Charr thing was a smokescreen to get people so upset, oh, we cannot see Manuel Charr, that you just throw Derek Chisora in there and anything's infinitely better and people just accept it. You never know. That could have been the plan as well. But hey, we don't know yet. We'll find out. And look, last but not least, I've got to talk about Chris Eubank Sr. and his comments on the Fight Is Right podcast with Tunde Ajayi and Spencer Fearon. Shout out to Spencer. He's come out essentially and said that he believes that Conor Benn is he thinks he's a clean athlete. He says that's a pure young man. That's a good young man. His team around him would likely have been a reason that there could have been adverse findings. He doesn't believe that he's taken anything knowingly. But his more point of contention was exactly the same as it was last time, with the fact that the weight clauses for what he says is a 33-year-old man to be making 160 and then taking him down further past that limit. His literal words was, they're trying to kill my boy. They're trying to kill my sons. And he went very dark. Basically, it's like, I'm coming for you. Now, I don't know what context that means. I'm not here to speculate. I know there was rumors and there was words actually where he said he had the lawyers on standby to sue every single person that was involved in that show if it went ahead. I mean, look, that could all be emotion. It could be having knowledge that we didn't know anything about. A lot of us have speculated that he might have known about the drug issues and the failed test beforehand. He says that he's actually not in the loop, that he left all that behind. He's also basically said that, look, Junior doesn't, he doesn't listen to me anymore. He's, he wanted to follow Floyd Mayweather because he showed the bling and the girls, but Floyd Mayweather was a brilliant fighter, but as a man, he was no man. Ali and Mike Tyson, they were men, they led by example. I don't know if Mike Tyson is the role model you need, but not in that time of life anyway, I don't know. But it was just, there's a lot of hurt coming from Senior at the moment, and I've got to assume it's just, you want your son to, you want to always protect them, but children a lot of the time don't want protection from their parents, especially after a certain age. Maybe you want them to be there to bail you out when you're in trouble, like after you've maybe got yourself into trouble, but in terms of not getting into trouble in the first place, you ain't trying to hear it. I know, look, from personal experience, there's been many times like my dad's said to me, you should do this, do that, because this is going to help you in the long run or in the future. And I've not listened. And then he's been right, but I needed to go through it myself. And I think sometimes it's more about, you can't tell your children things because they're never going to listen to what you say. They're always going to watch what you do and emulate what you do. Like, there's a lot of mannerisms I have. There's a lot of things I say, the way I say things, even certain ways I do certain things is a direct trait of me seeing my dad do it for years. And it just cerebrally, that's in me. But whereas he might talk, and the talk, I don't hear the talk, but I see the movements. So maybe Senior should have been acting out certain things more as opposed to trying to speak it to Junior. I don't know, but look, ultimately, I think some people will agree it was a right move for the bout not to go ahead because, Eubank Jr. did not look good the day after the weigh-in when he came in at 159 on the Saturday. Face looked gaunt as hell. Like, body looked like, ripped up. Yeah, it looked great in that sense, but it also looked like there was nothing to it. Yeah, that wouldn't have been a great situation, especially if Conor did have trace amounts of whatever in his system. And look, this whole thing needs to get resolved. Conor he needs to come out at this point. Probably he needs to say, you know what, fuck the lawyers, fuck all that. I need to tell people what's happened, how this is here, or bust that B sample open and make sure that there's no, and if that's clean and it was somehow a contamination, praise the Lord. If it wasn't, and you know exactly how it's in your system, whether error or just get it out. Might as well just talk about it now, because the rumors, everything ain't gonna get worse. Basically your whole camp is now being put into disrepair. I've seen people, everyone's talking about Joe Cordina all of a sudden. He came out earlier and said, look, I've been clean from day one, never failed any test. I've been on the GB team. They tell us about how you're supposed to check everything that goes into your body, blah, blah, blah. But Conor didn't have that same training. He didn't come from the amateur setup. But talking about him, they're talking about Felix Cash. I've heard rumors about people talking about John Ryder as well at the moment, and they're even lumping Craig Richards into the thing because he trains in that same gym, even though he's not even trained by the same person. But when you're all in close proximity, you all get infected with the same rot. So that whole thing needs to come out quick. Get that out there, if not to absolve yourself, but to absolve everyone that's around you, because that's looking as a big mess right now. But yeah, look, shout out to Senior. As much as a lot of his antics have made me think he can be a certain way at times, like this is not one of those times. I understand what he's gone through, and I understand obviously his relief in the situation, and ultimately his hurt at the fact that maybe his son is not listening to him as he once did, and that's a hard adjustment for him, especially after losing a son already. And it's now this one, you will need to keep this one extra close, but he doesn't want to be close at the time when you need him to be. It's not great, so I feel for him. But look, that being said, I'm gonna leave this one here. I don't want to talk for too long. Coming up to 100. It's coming soon. I don't know what I'm gonna do for that. That might be an interesting situation. But thanks for everyone who's been on the journey so far, and for everyone who's coming onto the journey. I appreciate you. So please, as I said, like and subscribe, share with your friends and everyone in between. And for right now, Hardcore Casual, out.